Hello, my name is Micah and I am an instructor at William Holland. We're going to go over a electro etching process. This is a different way of applying your pattern or texture to a piece of metal. If you've seen, or I recommend that you see the first video. There will be links in the comments below. For that video, I do recommend watching that because I go over some of the steps a little bit more in-depthly than I will today. Kind of doing a condensed process here. So first of all, what I'll do is I'm going to tell you the pieces, all the stuff that you need to get started here. So you'll have your aluminum foil, cut into strips. You'll need contact paper. Depending on the size of the piece of the metal that you're cutting will determine the size of your piece of contact paper. Pieces, there will be plural. You'll need your scissors and your little scraper card. This is just to keep bubbles from getting in our package, which we'll explain later. So the new part of this process, because in the video previously I talked about a drawing process. So this one is taking an image and then basically printing it off onto toner transfer paper is what this is. The easiest way to find this stuff, you can just Google PCB fab in a box, and it should bring you right up to the Pulsar professional website where you can then purchase this product. That's where I get mine from. So this is what we'll do is we'll take the paper and print our image onto it. I'm not actually going through the printing process right now, so I'm assuming everybody knows how to print. You will need a laser printer for this. This will not work with inkjet. So today's pattern that I'm going to do is this one right here, but you can do various patterns. It's one reason why I like this process. This is definitely a way to, you want to use basic patterns. Something that's a little bit more simple, doesn't require a lot of detail for the image to look good. So that's a little bit on that. Some of the other pieces that you'll need, and I go over these in the first video, and your rectifier, which you can get on Amazon, about 50 bucks. You know, you'll need your XOXO containers with cupric nitrate. In this particular process, we're doing silver, so you have to use cupric nitrate. I go over that also in the previous video. You'll also need your copper plate here, your cathode. So those are the pieces that you'll need. And one quick, your Teflon sheet. This will be just used to keep the contact paper from sticking to your working surface. That's all that's for. I didn't mention that. So down here, I have a heat press. You can use, there are people who talk about using panini presses or stuff like this, but I recommend using an actual press. For myself, I'm using the process consistently. It's 150 bucks. It's small investment basically for, you know, for what it is. And it gets a good, it gets a consistent product. So when I print off the image, I do that on the toner transfer paper. This here. I will print off basically a whole sheet. Then I can cut from that the size that I need. This particular piece of metal isn't the exact size, but for demo purposes, this will work. I take my piece of metal and I make sure I clean it very well. I use Penny Bright, or you know, if you just have some like even pumice powder and a little bit of soap, that will do a nice little, it will clean the surface very well. And then I'll go over that with acetone to make sure I don't have any skin oils or anything like that. It's gonna, a cleaner surface is going to have better adhesion of your toner. Your toner is acting as your resist. So what I would do, once I have my piece of metal clean, I would take my image, you know, maybe this one, I'd cut it down, put that in my metal, put that against my metal. This, if you use, you know, an image that requires you to line things up, you'll need to give yourself some sort of reference points so you know you get everything lined up right. That's why I like to use simple patterns. Basically, I don't really have to work on lining anything up here other than having it straight, right? So I will put that in cardstock. This just protects my working surface of my press. So I will, so then I will put that in the heat press, and I'll press this down for 3 minutes. So I'll have that set for 3 minutes. So that'll go off in 3 minutes. In that 3 minutes, since we're on video, we will get our piece of metal that sometimes, this is part of the reason why I use the cardstock. You notice some of this overhang is now stuck to this. That would be stuck on your press if you didn't do this. So I'm just gonna take off this piece. Basically just trash. And in water, I'm going to put that. That's gonna help me release the paper, which then will, the heat is actually what put the image on. This will just get the paper off. That's all that will do. So while that's waiting, I'll talk a little bit about your images. I try to, like I was saying over there, try to teach them as simple, basic texture patterns. Basically, is how I do it. What's the word? Resolution. The higher resolution, the better. And I try to keep them simple, abstract. Nothing that requires a lot of detail to look good. I do recommend on any image that you do tests. You want to do multiple tests on length of time of etching. I've got my process down how I like it. My times that I use thicker gauges of metal. So my etching times are longer than it would be for a 24 gauge piece of metal. The length of time that I go on 45 minutes on some of mine, you would never do with 24 gauge. You would etch your metal away. So as soon as this is off here, we will go over the packaging process. This is where people sometimes get confused. So I will go back over this process a little bit, a condensed version again, because if you have seen the first video, you'll probably still need reminders. So, perfect. There we go. I'll bring it over. So, once the toner transfer paper has been released, this is what you get. If you've had, yeah, and there's the 3 minutes. So we want to have that done. So our 3 minutes was up. We had this in the water. We now have our image nicely on our piece of metal. This is now the resist. All the line, the black lines there will not be, everything around those will be etched. So now we have to package this up. So what I do, I cut my pieces of contact paper into the appropriate size of the piece of metal I'm using. This is a round one, but basically this is the exact same thing that we are going to be doing right here. So this packaging here, like I said, depending on the size of the piece of the metal, it will determine your contact paper size. So once you have your piece of contact paper, you're going to want to make a little cut right in here. I'm not actually going to cut this piece, but you'll just make a little cut that is wide enough for your piece of aluminum foil to go through, right? So that's sticking through. The paper side here is the sticky side, and this is the side that we want up. This is basically, this is what the piece of metal will stick to, all right? So that comes through. This is how it looks, just so everybody knows. It just comes straight through. You don't have to have a lot sticking out here. You just need this to make contact. This is our conductor, and that needs to just make good contact with your piece of metal, okay? So once I've done that, then I'm gonna take the contact paper off. There we go. Sometimes it's easy, sometimes it's not. Usually in demos. There we go. There we go. Got it. So, a little easy way to keep from damaging your conductor as you're doing this. Rip this down. There we go. So, you notice that? And just peel that contact paper off. It's trash. Get rid of that. Oops. Put your little piece of metal now, you know, it's sticky. That's the part that we want, and so this is where we're at, right? We got our conductor coming through. Now, this is the way it looks like on the back. And then what I'll do, take your piece of metal. So this is the side that your pattern's on. We want that side out. This is what needs to be etched. So I'm going to put it face down. Now I'm just going to line this up, basically getting my conductor in the middle of the piece of metal. And keeping with your little scraper card, you know, save your gift cards from wherever, Starbucks, this one. And then we just make sure we kind of keep the bubbles out. All right. So. There we go. Now that step is done. Now what we have to do is we have to cover our conductor. If we were to put it in like this, we basically would etch the aluminum foil itself. That would be etched away. We don't want that. So then I take another piece of contact paper, and that's just gonna go on the back side. Trash. And this is where we'll want to try to keep some more of the air bubbles out of here. I just do that because there can, if you're not careful, you can create little channels. Oh, that's sticking down more than I want right now. There can be like you can create little channels that will allow the solution to get in. And we don't want that. We want this thing to be nicely sealed, because every piece, every area that is not covered with our resist will be etched away. So we need to protect the back. We need to protect all the areas that we don't want etched. There we go. So get the air bubble out of there. There we go. That part, I've got that protected. My conductor is here. I recommend do not use this as a handle. You will rip your aluminum foil. I like to flip this over. This is part of the reason why I like the Teflon paper, which is also available on Amazon. So flip that over. Peel that away. We now have our piece packaged and ready to go to be put into the solution. Now, if you notice, slide over. My contact paper is a little bit wider than it needs to be. All right, well, we can just trim it down. Not a big deal. And I usually have a little excess just so that I'd much rather cut it down this way, because then I know I've got everything nice and sealed. There's always going to be a little waste. So once I have that ready, and they'll fit in nicely, I'm going to put this into my solution and this is why I also like to keep this long. If you notice, I don't have to fill my solution all the way up to the top here, so there's less solution that I need to do the etching process. So I'm going to submerge just down to basically above the piece. I do not want the aluminum foil, our conductor, to make contact with the solution. So I'm going to turn this around just so you can see. There's the top of the contact paper. Is that visible? Mm-hmm. There's the piece of contact paper here, and this is the exposed up here area of my conductor. All here is covered with the contact paper. If you put this too low, it will etch this away. Your piece will drop down to the bottom, and you won't have anything etching. So that is a common mistake. So, got my rectifier plugged in, turned on. My piece that I want to etch is my positive. So I'm going to attach my positive end there. And take my copper plate, my cathode as it's called, the technical name. Put that in. And I'm going to connect the negative. There we go. And we heard that little click. We know we have contact. Everything is. I've got good contact with my conductor, my aluminum foil, here against my metal piece. So we have a complete current happening. The amperage on the rectifier is basically what is important here. It is what is doing the work. And I have this one set at, does it still say 95? Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I have this one at 0.95. So it's not quite 1 amp. Low and slow typically is the best way for this, like your barbecue, same with your etching. So from this point, this is 16 gauge that I'm using here. I like a nice deep etch. What I'll do typically, I'll go maybe 45 minutes, but I will set my timer for about 30 and I'll check it. I always do that. I always go under the time that I typically go. I always want to check it and make sure everything is, things are etching properly. One thing that can happen if you do have a more detailed image, if you etch too deep, sometimes it can basically deteriorate some of the image, because if there are any small fine areas that you need, again, this is why I do just more simple patterns and textures. You etch away some of the detail and it won't look right. So I've set my timer for 30 minutes. Then
Okay, 30 minutes and counting.
yeah, so Suri, just help me out. So once that goes for your 30 minutes, the particular pattern will end up with this. So the great thing about this process, from here, I can use these as component-based pieces for different pieces of jewelry. I can use just, pieces itself cut out in different shapes to create, copper jewelry. The lovely, also the nice. I can't talk. The really great thing about this process is, if you want, you can make your own texture plates, your own patterns, and original. So that's one of the lovely things about this. So I think that's a great use of this technique. Then also, like I said, component based. So I can use this on the back of a pendant, for my back plate. These will be made into stud earrings here, so these are just cut squares. So then you can do circles. But that is the great thing about this process. Why I enjoy it. I can bring drawing into some of the process, and then, finding cool little patterns these are one of the cuffs that I make. I use the combination of these two patterns. They're both circuit board patterns. So you can find the pattern that you like. Easiest way to do that is just take some time and go searching on the internet for interesting patterns. Whatever kind of pattern you want to look for. I won't say the sky's the limit, because there are limitations to some patterns, but for the most part, if it's a simple pattern, it should work. Again, I repeat, do tests. You'll get a better product if you do your tests. Let's see. I think that is about it for this process.
Tell us the different classes you're teaching.
So the next year would be I'll do say electro etching, one, and then the other one is the metals advanced. It's an advanced class.
It's in a silver class.
It's a silver class.
And you'll fabricate a little bit with the silver.
We'll do more fabrication. That one will require you to have some soldering skills.
Wait, silver too.
Silver too, yes. So you will have to have some soldering skills involved in that class, because we'll be taking the etching process and then fabricating different pieces of jewelry, pendants, earrings, cuffs, whatnot. Cufflinks also, if you choose. Or bails. This is the beginning of a bail. So this is a great thing about this process. That's why I love it. Is that good? All right. Thank you. And that's it for this part. You have a great day.